It was 1490 BC when Moses had been adopted by Hatshepsut, the daughter of Pharaoh, who became the third ever female pharaoh. She had passed away 8 years before Moses returned to Egypt in 1450 BC. By this time, Hatshepsut's stepson and nephew was ruling, Pharaoh Thutmose III. "Moses, you poured water on the ground, but nothing much happened," cautioned Miriam. "The water became blood as a sign," said Moses, trying to remain patient. "That little pool of blood! The magicians were able to do the same with their enchantments. And my staff swallowed up the snakes the magicians created." It was early the next morning, and they sat on the rug after breakfast with Aaron. Sunshine streamed in through the open doorway beside them. "God spoke aloud to me from the burning bush," Moses reminded her. "He is going to fulfill his promise to bring the Hebrews out of slavery, out of Egypt and back to Canaan." "I saw the flame in the bush too, Miriam, though from afar off," said Aaron. "Moses has the skills for the task. God has said he will do wonders, and that Pharaoh will let us go. The elders believe." They sat in silent contemplation for a moment, and then Moses continued, "I know the way of the wilderness. I can lead the people just as I once led Pharaoh's armies. We will cross the peninsula on the trade route, away from the Assyrian armies. It could take 10 days or more, depending on our progress. We should begin to stockpile food for about a month. Miriam, will you get the word out to the women? We don't have enough food for more than a week at a time. What am I going to say? Tell them that God will provide. Ask the domestic slaves to obtain more. They could say the Hebrews are preparing for a feast." Miriam nodded. A Hebrew woman appeared in the open doorway. "Miriam, Aaron, something terrible is happening, and it's your brother's fault." She stood with her arms folded and glared at Moses. He felt a knot forming in the pit of his stomach. There's no backing out of this now, he told himself. "What is happening?" asked Aaron, as he stood up and went to the woman. Moses and Miriam did likewise. "Here comes the officer now," said the woman. An officer of Pharaoh walked through the streets of Avaris with an announcement. "From this day forward the Hebrews will gather the straw to make bricks. They will not be given chaff from the storehouse, but the quota of bricks will not be reduced, by order of Pharaoh." The woman glowered at Moses and stormed off. Aaron and Moses sat back down with Miriam and prayed. Then they waited in silence. "The Lord says that Aaron and I must go directly to the palace, where Pharaoh bathes in the Nile in the morning. The staff of God should be held over the river in the sight of Pharaoh, and the water will become blood," said Moses. "You look worried," said Aaron. Moses closed his eyes and bowed his head. His muscles were tense. "I pray we will not be tortured to our deaths." Aaron realized that Moses was thinking back to his time in Pharaoh's court, where he would have been witness to many atrocities. "God has called us for purpose, not a failure," said Aaron at length. Moses swallowed and nodded. The Hebrews could find no chaff anywhere for brickmaking, since the harvest had been months ago. The taskmasters whipped them with switches to make them hurry as they picked up whatever rubbishy material they could find on the ground. Within a short time, there was nothing left to gather. They started plucking up grass. Some of the Hebrews were flogged. The task of brickmaking like this was impossible, and Pharaoh knew it. Aaron and Moses went to the Nile, where the palace overlooked the water. They stood within shouting distance. Pharaoh and a manservant had just come out of the water from a morning bathe. They ascended the long steps to the porch, picked up cloths and patted themselves dry. The manservant dressed Pharaoh, who then sat on a throne and was brought some mint tea. The servants began to settle themselves on cushions on the floor. "Look there!" A servant pointed at Moses and Aaron. "Well," said Aaron, holding the staff over the river. His sandal suddenly filled with water as he stumbled into a grass-covered puddle. "Strike the water with the rod," said Moses. By now, they were being stared at. Aaron struck the water of the Nile as Moses called out, "Because you would not let the Hebrews go, behold, the waters of this river shall be turned to blood by Jehovah." Pharaoh called back, "Who is this Jehovah that I should obey him?" A red colour, which was blood, began to spread quickly through the water. Pharaoh leaned forward and squinted. Everyone on the porch stood up. Exclamations broke out. Pharaoh barked out an order, and 2 soldiers headed for Moses and Aaron, who met them halfway as they were walking towards the stairs. The soldiers grabbed Moses and Aaron by their arms and pulled them roughly up the steps. "What is this new trick you have done?" asked Pharaoh. "The Nile God is sacred!" Moses answered, "This is as I told you. Now you know that Jehovah is Lord." Moses gestured towards the river, where fish were already beginning to pop up to the surface. "Insolent fool!" spat Pharaoh, though there was fear in his eyes as well as anger. He turned on his heel and entered the house, calling for the magicians to make the water clean. Moses and Aaron were released, as the soldiers had no further orders to detain them. Mud bricks require water for the mixture. The Hebrews dug in the ground for water, but in the end, they used blood. Unaware of what had happened, Hippaware the scribe found blood in the water jug in his room. "What's this?" He sniffed it, and it stunk. "One of the young students has done this as a joke," he said to himself. He took the jug into the corridor, intending to go outside to discard the blood, but he halted. 2 women were carrying water jugs, and they looked annoyed. Presently, some others emerged from their chambers with water pitchers too. Hippaware got goosebumps. His mentor Jabari came out, and catching sight of him, he stopped. They looked at each other's water jugs. An uproar began throughout the palace. Moses and Aaron returned to Aaron's house to seek God. Aaron asked, "Would you like a cup of water?" Moses answered, "Please." Yes, they found that there was water in the urn. Since Avaris was deserted in the daytime, Aaron ducked into the neighbour's house and quickly returned. "Asher has water too," he said, smiling. "God is great," said Moses. "Now what else can you tell me about Pharaoh?"